Mic check, I'm good. So I'm Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Welcome back to another edition of a podcast here with the Canadian Welding Bureau Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron, and today we have an awesome guest coming from the West Coast, Mackenzie Jopp. He comes from SeaSpan, but today we're excited to have him on the show to talk about the journey and what's going on out in the West. You know, we've had lots of Eastern guests the first few episodes, and now we're hitting the other side of the country with the West. So, Mackenzie, how you doing?
Doing very well, thank you very much.
So, do you go by Mac or Mackenzie or Z or Ken or?
Mackenzie or Mac, doesn't matter. I get Jopper a lot too from the guys that know me from when I was a kid.
Jopp, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I'm used to all of it.
And you know what's funny is that when I first came to Canada, Max wasn't that common of a name back then. So older folks would always think I was Mac. I got called Mac all the time, and it doesn't really bother me. Like, whatever, it's pretty close to Max. But if me and you hit the town, there's gonna be a lot of confusion over who's getting talked to. Is it Mac or Max?
So when I was a kid, growing up, I was always Mac. That's what I introduced myself as. And then when I turned 15, I actually started working at McDonald's. That was my first job. And being Mac, working at McDonald's was kind of embarrassing. So I started telling everybody my full name because it was like, well, it's Macintosh, McDonald, like, no, it's Mackenzie, and then people that knew me call me Mac. So as I got older, I ended up morphing back to my full third name.
It's interesting because, you know, name changes, right? My first name is actually Sebastian. And so in my emails and stuff like that, it's always people see Sebastian, and it's a family name. So my dad's a Sebastian and I'm a Sebastian. My son is a Sebastian. So we all kind of go by our middle names. It's kind of a Chilean thing. And it confuses some people. And I don't mind.
I feel you. My first legal name is actually Joseph. And so sometimes, you know, people call me and they're like, "Is Joseph there?" And you're like, "Who?"
Well, you know, it's a really good way to know if they're your friend or not. If someone calls and they ask for you by your first name, they're either a lawyer or they don't have a clue who you are.
Right. It's a good filter. So yeah, and it's funny too because my wife, she goes by her third name as well. So
Are you guys in the witness protection plan? Are we exposing a hidden front you guys got going on there?
Maybe.
All right, Mackenzie. So you're out in the West. Are you where are you living?
So I live in Victoria, British Columbia. I live just in the outskirts on the West Shore, in a city called Langford. We have it's a fantastic place. The mayor's really been picking things up and making it a very family-friendly area. It's wonderful because when I was a kid, it was a pretty scary place out here.
Yeah, you know, it's really restructured. A lot of money's gone out onto the island there in the last few years or decades.
Well, and they're building like mad out here, and where are all the people coming from? Like every time I turn around, there's another 6th-floor condo or apartment going up.
Well, it's probably because companies like yours are out there making jobs, right? So if you bring jobs, the people follow, right?
Yes.
So what's your background? You work for a massive shipbuilding company, one of the biggest in the world, really. And you guys, you know, are you a welder? Are you an engineer? Like, where'd you come up from?
So I'm actually an entrepreneur by trade.
Okay, cool.
So I found out at a young age that I was a businessman, and I got that from my old man. As much as I didn't want to become a businessman, and then I got to a point in my life, I was 26, 27, and it kind of wasn't going anywhere anymore. And it was time to grow up, time to make some life decisions. What do I want to do? So I didn't have any formal training. I mean, I had my education from school, stuff like that. I had a lot of experience. And I was actually working for Cisco Foods, running their warehouse on the weekends. And I was a manager of people there. And I decided it was time to do something with my life. And I went up to Camosun College and I did the info trades night. And they show you all of the programs and stuff. And of course, I had been tinkering in the garage with a little welding machine that I bought off my buddy's dad, who was an auto body mechanic. And I was like, man, gluing metal together is the coolest thing. And then I was like, oh, there's a welding program? I can get paid to glue metal together? This is awesome. And so I went in there and I fell in love with it right away. And then, of course, back when I was doing it, so in 2008 is when I actually went to school. It was a self-paced program. So I was actually working full-time in the morning from 6 to 2, and then I would drive to the school to 2:30, and then I would go to school from 2 to 9:30 at night, and then I would work all weekend. And in the meantime, my wife was pregnant at the time, so like there was busy times.
A little bit of mayhem going on.
It was self-paced, right? And so I just treated it like work. I went in there every day, and I wasn't there to make friends or anything. It was like, I want to get schooled, I want to get back out in the world, and I want to make things happen. So I actually flew through the foundation program, and the teacher was like, well, how did you do it so fast? Do you have welding experience? I said, well, yeah, I'm welding door frames at my buddy's shop. He's like, well, will you sign your logbook? And I said, well, I don't see why you wouldn't. So then they found out that I had a balance of tuition. They said, well, do you want to do your level B right away? And I'm like, okay, why not, right? So I actually went in and quit my job the next day to go do my level B during the day. And then I went to my other employer and said, hey, can I switch to night shift? And they said, sure. So I did a full swap. So I ended up doing my level A, B, and C in about 7 months. And I had everything done.
For the people that are listening across Canada, BC uses an ABC system, where
Right.
Most of the country uses a 1, 2, 3.
Right. So I did my 1, 2, and 3 in basically 7 months back to back. And then now right as I finished my schooling and I was all excited to go out and find a real welding job, it was basically when the stock market crashed in 2008 and there was no work.
Good timing.
Right. So I kept working at the one job that I had, and then I started building stuff for my friends. I was building little brackets and holders and stuff like that. And then I can make a pretty good go of this. And I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So I ended up starting my own business, and it started out small, and I would hustle any gig I could get, right? You want me to build that for you? Sure. And I was the cheapest guy in town, and I wasn't in it to make a ton of money. I was just
Keep busy, yeah.
Building up the reputation. And then one day I was driving down the road and I got a call from a local shipyard company, a different one. And they said, hey, can you come down and weld some pipe for us? I'm like, well, yeah, I've done tons of pipe, in my shop and stuff like that. It's all. He's like, yeah, come on down. And the money that he was offering me at the time compared to what I was making, it was like drop everything and go now. I remember the first time going down to the shipyard. I mean, it's an impressive place if you've never been there. So the graving dock is 1,200 feet long, it's 100 feet wide, and it's 45 feet deep, and it's all below sea level. And then they have 3 monster cranes down there. They have a 30-ton, 2 30 tons, and 150-ton crane. So, going from doing trinkets in your garage to heading down to a place like that is like absolutely overwhelming, but super cool at the same time.
It is a ton of fun to see big machinery in action. Yeah,
it is. Oh, I love it, man. Anything big like that, it really gets me going. So I went down there, I started contracting to that company, and I spent more and more time in the shipyard, and I got better and better, and they kept calling me back, and I kept growing my business on the side. And one day I was doing a large job up at the university, and the local union, UA 324, tracked me down, and they said, well, we want to affiliate with you. So I became the union rig welder for Victoria for welding pipe. And so I was doing that. I was running my business. I was working for people out there, and I actually I got hurt pretty bad. I had 4,500 pounds fall on my left foot.
Okay, and not on purpose.
Not on purpose. No. not an experience I recommend for anybody. And so I was kind of reevaluating my life, and I'm like, okay, what do I really want to do here? And I started teaching at the college. And I'm
Which
like,
college
okay,
was that?
Coastal College.
Oh yeah, good guys there, man. Great guys.
I had a lot of fun. It was always kind of a dream of mine to go back and teach there one day. I just wasn't expecting it to happen so fast from graduation and being all of a sudden you're 35 years old and you're asked to instruct a foundation class. You're like, oh man, like I gotta give yourself a little pinch, right? Because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I made it, man. I've gone full circle, right?
And it's a whole change of gears too as to how you run a shop.
Right. And so, you know, I got to see the other side of teaching, which not a lot of people do. And, you know, there's some personal frustrations with it, but I wasn't quite ready to commit to that full time. That's a job that maybe one day in the future I might look forward to going back to kind of wind down the career. Anyways, I was at the college one day and the SeaSpan job came up for the welding supervisor. And I came home and had a long discussion with the wife, and I said, "Okay, well, let's go for it. Let's put it in." You know, I always loved being down there. It's such a cool place to work, and so I applied for the job in July, and I didn't get an interview till October. It was a very long time, but just kind of what's going on. So I had my interview, and then it must have been it was at the end. It was mid December. And my business was just absolutely humming, and I had so much stuff going on, and I had recovered from my injury somewhat. And, you know, if you want to talk about the perfect storm of how life throws things at you, my shop that I was running was up for lease. My landlord wanted me to sign for 5 more years. My business insurance was due. I had like all these things were coming up, and I'm like, okay, I haven't heard from
Good time to pull the plug.
Right. I was getting ready to register my company with the Canadian Welding Bureau. I did my supervisor course. I had everything lined up and I was ready to hit it big. And the phone rang and it was the lady from SeaSpan in Vancouver. She's like, "We'd like to offer you the job." And I'm like, okay, let me talk to the other half. And we decided that it would be a good choice, be better for the family. And, you know, hustling a business day in and day out, it runs you ragged.
Yeah, I've had mine for 22 years now on the side. I've sold it twice, restarted it. That entrepreneur bug is hard to get rid of. I still got my shop in my house now. I used to have a 12,000 square foot shop, but now it's just me. And I just take the little gigs that I can build inside my 30 by 30, and that's enough, you know, but it's almost impossible to stop.
It is. It really is. And so, you know, I had a mountain of welding gear and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to shut my business down now. Like, how do you do that? And it's really cool because I built such a great clientele. I love my customers. You know, they totally understood what I was doing, and they said, "Look, if you got to go do it, we totally get it." You know, work in Victoria for industrial is very up and down. There's no steady bug of work. So I took it, I jumped in, and I've been having fun ever since. So I'm almost coming up on 4 years full time running the welding department. So, and we've had a very, very busy 4 years.
You know, I follow C-SPAN. My family used to live out in Richmond, BC for a long time. My dad was a welder. He worked for Nelson Machinery out there for a long time. And I've always kind of looked at ship building, and I mean, it's not something you see a lot of, right? And out on the West Coast, there's lots going on. Also, like I go east and kind of check out there, and I compare. Like I'm always looking at what's going on the East Coast and the West Coast, and I've noticed that the West Coast builders have been booming for a bit now. And I don't know if it's international contracts or local contracts or.
Well, there's a really rich history of shipbuilding in Victoria, and there was really cool stuff that we had in town. There's an old company called Victoria Machinery Depot, and they built most of the BC ferries, as well as another shipyard called Yaros, which teamed up with a few other yards. And so we were good at building ships, man. And it just all got lost. It's gone away. And, you know, a lot of these old timers, I mean, they're at the end of their career. And if we don't start tapping into them now, we're going to lose all that knowledge.
Yeah, there's a hoarding. I've talked about this on many of my public presentations or speeches that I do around Canada or the US about knowledge hoarding in the trades, and it's the mentorship system's kind of breaking down. And it's really important that we save this mentorship system. I mean, that's why I do these things, right? It's about sharing knowledge going down. There's no reason to protect it or hoard it. It helps everybody, you know, really.
Yeah, if I could offer any advice, if you don't know, ask. And you know, these guys, they won't come and tell you, but as soon as you ask them, they will pour their guts out to you.
Yeah, it's like it's better to ask a stupid question than do a stupid thing, right? So
So yeah, we're in a real neat spot on the West Coast. So just a little bit about SeaSpan. They have 3 yards. So they actually have Vancouver shipyard where they're building the new joint support ships, as well as the new Coast Guard vessels. So that's all new fabrication, and that place is massive. And they got a lot of really cool stuff over there. And then right next to them, they have Vancouver Dry Dock. They have a couple of floating dry docks. They do a lot of ship repair there. And then we're over on the island. So, I mean, everybody says, oh, it's really close. It's about a 4-hour trek from we drive and take the ferry and everything else. And we're at the Esquimalt graving dock. We have all kinds of neat work that we do right now. So most of our work is refit on the Halifax class Navy frigates. We're also working on the submarine program. We have Australian, New Zealand frigates at the yard right now. We get cruise ships. So we're all over the place. One day you're working on one code, the next day you're working to another one, and it really keeps you sharp.
that's super fun. Yeah. All right, you know what? We're right at the 15-minute mark here. Perfect timing. So we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back after the commercials. So I'm with Mackenzie here from SeaSpan, and I'm Max, and this is a CWB Association podcast. We'll be right back.
The CWB Group is offering a hydrostatic testing course at our Nisku CWB training facility. This course is a must-have for all personnel involved in the planning, execution, and inspection of hydrostatic testing. It ensures that everyone involved in any given hydro test will have the same baseline training and safety protocols across Canada. This course covers a wide range of topics related to pressure testing, with a specific emphasis on hydrostatic testing of oil and gas pipelines according to CSA, Z662, and other applicable Canadian regulations. The 3-day course covers the theoretical background and practical aspects of pressure testing. The hands-on practical exercises are unique to this course, and individuals will learn how to calculate different variables related to hydrostatic testing. Course highlights include testing theory, establishing the safe pressure test requirement and environment, test setup and sequence, test instrumentation and documentation, practical demonstration of pig launching and receiving techniques, practical demonstration of burst test. Space is limited. Register today for the first Canadian-focused hydrostatic training course.
All right, we're back here on CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron with you guys again. I got Mackenzie Jopp here from SeaSpan Victoria talking about his path to where he is and what SeaSpan's got going on right now. So in my history with SeaSpan, I've been talking to SeaSpan on and off through the college for like 3 years now, because you guys had a big push looking for welders there for a while. I've sent students to your guys' website. You guys got listings up and down for positions. Of course, this was pre-COVID, right? So COVID kind of threw a wrench into these plans, I think, a little bit. But I assume by now, you guys, like most companies in Canada, are starting to open back up and the work's starting to flow again.
We never shut down.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was really tough. Like we had days in March where it was like, okay, today's the day they're gonna shut us down. Today's the day they're going to shut us down. And then our competition in Halifax, they actually closed their doors for 3 weeks. And then that really threw everybody off because they're like, well, if they're doing it, how come we're not doing it? But we kept going on we made changes like everybody else has, but we never stopped.
Yeah, you adapt.
We did do a significant layoff. We were only able to work on so many things. Ship repair, I mean, you got to jam as many people in a compartment as you can, and you're in there welding, and there's a guy next to you doing wiring, and it's, we're all piled up on top of each other working. So we've had to remold what we're doing to
stage things, schedule things better.
Yeah.
So did you grow up in BC?
I grew up in Victoria. I moved here when I was 2, and I haven't left.
So you're a local boy through and through now.
I guess so.
Never thought about that.
It's just always been my home. I got no reason to leave.
Yeah, I get it. I feel like that with Regina. I've worked all over the world, and people are always like, "Wow, wouldn't it be more convenient for you to work in Toronto or Vancouver or some major center?" You know what? I've had awesome employment opportunities in this little city. I've never been unemployed. I've always been paid really well. Why would I leave?
And I mean, the only thing that we're missing now on the island is an IKEA. As soon as we get that, then I never, ever have to leave.
You know what? I'm a firm believer that Canada should develop finished product instead of selling stuff to other countries and then us buying it back. We need to open a Canadian version of, where we use our own lumber and make shitty furniture.
Right. And then it comes with Robertson screwdrivers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Keep it Canadian.
Yeah. All right, so you're at SeaSpan. Things are rolling good. Now, what's the future looking like for you guys? You guys got projects coming up? Like, what's some of the stuff you guys are working on?
So our next big hurdle. Well, right now we're trying to get the refit done on this Halifax class frigate. We've been working on it for a long time. We want to get that thing done. The next big hurdle we're actually working on an LNG conversion. So liquefied natural gas for a tow vessel. So Total Motion Trailer Express has 2 large boats that run from Seattle to Alaska and back. And that is the lifeline for Alaska. So they are constantly hauling, and they have these 2 massive workhorses for ships, and they're going to convert those to liquefied natural gas. So we've already done phase 1 of each vessel, and now we're lining up for phase 2. So the first phase, we had 1,400 tons of steel that we put on, as well as these 235-ton liquefied natural gas tanks. And it is cool, man. Like, the weather's been miserable. If anybody hasn't been up on the West Coast when it rains for like a week straight and you're trying to weld, it just does not work.
Yeah, moisture can be an issue.
Yeah. So we're getting better at that, and it's always easier to do things the second time around. So the second one was definitely much better than the first.
Well, and people that don't live by the coast or no coastal economies, they don't realize how much moves on boat. Like, they really don't think about it. It's like, I can be in Regina, I can watch 75 semis go by in an afternoon, no problem. People don't stop and think that, well, there's 75 boats out there moving in that same time frame. Like, commerce moves through the water.
So that boat that we work on, just to give you an idea, it holds 600 trailers and 300 cars. And they have 2 of them. And that thing is jam-packed, and they have them, both of them going back and forth to Alaska, and they never stop. They stop to unload, and that's it. They just keep going. They are
back and forth.
Yeah.
So if you're a welder and you're listening to this and you've like, man, I've always wanted to live out in the West Coast, what would be a requirement? What's something a CSPAN would say to a young welder coming in to apply for a job? What would be something that maybe they should be working on at home or training on, or maybe a ticket, a CWB certification or something? What do you guys look for?
I always look for the right attitude.
Yeah.
Somebody that wants to learn. I noticed when I was working, like when I ran my shop, people would always call me and they'd be like, "Hey, are you guys looking for welders?" I'm like, "Well, get off your butt and come down and see me. Don't be calling me."
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Well, but I'm the best welder." And I'm like, "Okay, well, if you're the best welder, then how come you're looking for work?" And then the ego side of me kicks in. It's like, "Well, if you're the best welder, then who am I?"
Yeah, yeah. Man, never discount the welder's ego.
Right. So I love people that want to learn, people that want to make a difference, and people that are always striving to be better. Your welding skill will definitely come with time. More time behind the trigger, you'll get good at honing your craft. But if you don't want to be there, don't show up.
Yeah, when I was young and coming up, I started my first business at 25, but I was always kind of running shop work here and there. I'd always keep my boots, my gloves, and my welding helmet in the trunk of my car. And I can't even tell you how many times I'd run into someone being like, "Oh, I wish we had someone that could weld this." So I'm like, "I'm here, let's do it." And they're like, "Well, do you want to go home?" No, I got everything in the trunk of my car, dude. Like, let's do it right now. And they'd look at me like, "Are you crazy?" It's like, well, the only way to make money is with my hands, and these are the tools that I need, so I carry them with me. And now that I'm old, I carry golf clubs.
I got a camera. That's what I do now. So
Yeah. Photography is very fun, and you take some great pictures for the people that maybe have Mackenzie on Instagram or follow CSpan. You guys are pretty good with taking pictures and showing what's going on out there, and it's very impressive.
yeah, one thing that is unfortunate about where I am is I'm not really allowed to have a camera in the yard and take photos of some of the stuff because of the security level that we're working on. But yeah, follow CSpan for sure, and you can hit me up. I do sneak some photos in there every now and then that I probably
Are they just pictures of you though?
Yes. Me, my kids, my dogs, life.
Life is good, and it's good because welders generally have pretty good lives. So I met you, right? Like, remember we were down in
We
Chicago.
met at FABTECH. And I'm gonna pump up your tires a little bit here, but I was excited to go. I've never been to FABTECH before, and holy cow. Like, you want to talk about hit in the face with a baseball bat. The amount of stuff that is available out there to make you better, and it is overwhelming.
Yeah, it's really something every welder should do, is go to CanWeld here in Canada, FABTECH in the US. If you have a chance to go, like, you got to get all over that because they're amazing.
So I went, and the first day we were there, I was in a bunch of courses, and then kind of waiting for everything to open up. And it was like, I had never been to Chicago before, so I'm in a huge American city I've never been to before. I'm going to a trade show I've never been to before. I'm like complete fish out of water. I read the book. Unlike most men, I actually read the book.
Mm-hmm.
You make a list of everything that you want to see and make a point of doing all that, and then go do just random stuff.
Walk around, yeah.
And I made a list of everything that I wanted to do, but one things that caught me the most is when I went to your program, you started talking about innovation at work and stepping up from one level to another. And we would love to go to fully automated pipe welding, but we can't even use weld positioners, right? Like, let's go from, we want to go to A to Z. Well, we got to get to B first, right? And
Yeah.
Really took a look at that, and then started using everything that you had said in your presentation, and it's really helped a lot at work. We're actually just taking small steps, and we're going a long ways.
Yeah, you just got to hammer out what's attainable.
Rewriting our procedures to making them simplified, to getting our gear so we only have one tip and one nozzle in the yard, and stuff like that. It really makes a big difference for the guys. Can't tell you how much they love it when they see that we're trying to change things, and they're excited.
Well, I'm glad you got something out of the presentation. I had pretty good response from people. It's tough as a presenter because the crowd is so diverse, right? There's people that are way, way, way smarter than me, and they probably come to my presentation and go, this is kind of boring. But then I get, lots of people that work in shops being like, man, that's what I needed to hear, is just better ways of organizing and in a language that the guys on the floor and management can communicate properly, right?
Well, then you always got to stay open to new things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember when I was running my rig, I'm like, I'm going to start welding pipe with wire. And one of my guys is like, you can't do that. The only way to weld pipe is with stick. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
In town. And pipe welding was so expensive, and I got a procedure for my company, and we were welding pipe with wire, and my clientele was like, holy cow, you can weld a pipe in 6 minutes.
yeah, for sure. And you know, it's so weird. They actually make machines to weld pipe open root with wire, and these machines have been in the market for 15 years, and there's still people being like, "You can do that?" It's like it's literally in the catalog.
Well, and it's for me being a pressure pipe welder. Like I can't tell you how many times you're jammed up in a hole and you're pouring a root in, and you're like, okay, how is the robot going to figure this out?
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes you can't get replaced. However, like when you're in a shop and you can turn and burn, man, like whatever you can do to pound the product out faster, quicker. I mean, the world's going to open its doors to you for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And people are looking for innovation now when they're even tendering jobs. It's very common now when people are looking to tender out a gig that they'll check the social media of a company. They'll see what's going on there, and takes part in the decision making of handing jobs out. Because if shops look dirty and unorganized, that's probably not going to be the best place to go. And you see a picture of a shop where everything was nice and clean and organized, and there's not a pile of old stock rusting in the backyard. Like, I mean, there's certain things that I look at when I look at a company, when I assess a company, that it's like, well, right off the top, I can tell there's a few bad habits here or good habits,
Yeah, you always want to stay first class, Max. That has always been the way that I've looked at it. I had a pretty slick logo, and my shop was always immaculate, always providing customers with solutions to their problems, not more problems. That's what people want. And I preach that down at the yard. With the ships that we work on, it's a repair yard. They're broken. They need to get fixed. Let's fix them. Don't give them more problems.
Yeah, let's make sure that the customer's getting what they want, if not even more than what they expect.
And, when you show up for work, like, and I see it, and I still laugh some days. I can see a welder walking down the street any day of the week with, all the holes in the hoodie and everything else. Don't be that person, right? Like
Scars on the arms, man,
Yeah, like I just, that mold needs to get broke for sure. Like you can go places, but when you show up in your ratty old clothes on and take it up a step and be professional, and man, things happen for sure.
Yeah, I actually tell some of the young students sometimes that, do you guys watch hockey? It's like, yeah, we watch hockey. And, those rough and tumble guys missing teeth and they're on the ice and they're sweating and dirty. Yeah. How do they look when they walk in before the game? They're all wearing suits. They're all looking clean, fresh, right? It's about being professional and doing your job. And you might be dirty all day long, but don't represent like that. Like be a professional about your life, and when things will fall in your lap, like things will come to you.
Well, 100%. How you conduct yourself, your attitude will take you way further than your skill set, my man.
Yeah, thank God.
Way further.
Awesome. So now, I mean, it's kind of a loaded question, but do you feel like you're a lifer now at SeaSpan? You see this playing out 20 years, 30 years? Like, you seem like an adventurous dude,
I think I'm going to stay there for a
while. Yeah.
And, going from running a business to running a department, I mean, a lot of life changes had to happen for me. You're out working by yourself. You're the lone wolf. You got your shop going. You're yearning for social interaction. Then you go start running a yard, and we capped out at 196 welders in the fall, but we've been averaging around 110 basically straight through for the last 3 years. And the welding is easy. It's the two-legged problems that play. And I can't tell you how many divorces and breakups and all that stuff I've been
I
through
can't even
work.
say anything. I got one of those under my belt too. So
Right. Like, and I come home now and I want to hide. Like I'm done. Right. Like
yeah,
dealing with that. So
there is always personal, I guess, dichotomies and relationships that happen at work that sometimes you got to keep them on the outside, because you don't also want to not care, because they're working for you, and you do want to
right.
feel like everyone's a community, right?
Right. And the more experience you have with that, like the better off you get, the more you learn, and you got to keep growing. Right. Like I had another man work for me, yeah, he just split up with his wife last week, and it's like, okay, take whatever time you need, do what you got to do, but like, let's stay engaged, right? Like
Yeah,
just like, come in and make work your distraction.
yeah. That's
You definitely want to wear two hats, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and I suggest this to everybody, like when you go to work, like I love football, I love like Deion Sanders, he was prime time, right? He was
Browns right here.
you like Deion Sanders. He was always a shy, quiet guy, but when he got on the football field, he was the man, right? It was all about the show. I suggest everybody do that. Like when you get to work, you just light it up every day, and be the man, be the woman, be the person,
Mm-hmm.
be part of the solution. Then when you leave, go home, do whatever you want, right? And so I try to do that as much as I can. So I'm at work, I try to be this superhuman person and want to be everything to everybody. And when I come home, I'm me again.
Yeah, and it's doable. Like, I mean, that's what work is. It's fun to try to be your best, because it brings up a level of competition even amongst your peers. If you see one guy trying his hardest to make the best weld even on the floor, the people around him tend to step up their game too, because no one ever wants to feel like they're the weak link, really. Like, that's not a good feeling. So people start stepping up, it kind of starts to bring the whole group up.
Well, I mean, one thing that we say out on the West Coast, you're only as good as your last weld.
Yeah, very true.
And I know guys, what they'll do is they'll spend all day welding and they won't do any of their pickups or cleanups until the end of the day. And then they spend all afternoon grinding, tidying up, and, weld 8 inches at a time, or 10 inches, or your foot, right? Make that weld, clean it up, make it look perfect,
Move
and
on.
then the next section. And then when your boss shows up, everything is immaculate and it's tiddly. And then you get to the point where you get so good, Max, I used to do this, is you'd intentionally leave little tiny defects to see if your boss would pick up on it when you came down.
Well, I got an interesting call a few weeks ago from one of the CWB testing centers, asking if I could weld up a bunch of samples for them. And I was like, well, what kind of samples? They're like, well, we need defect samples. And I was like, I don't know if I know how to do that.
Yeah.
So you want me to weld bad on purpose? I don't know, man. That's kind of tricky.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny too, when I did my supervisor, my inspector's tickets, right? They bring these coupons and then you're like, how did you do that?
Yeah. It's like, well, can you get one with a bunch of overlap just coming over the top? I'm like, maybe just crank the wire to like 700 and see what happens.
Turn it aside, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's always interesting. Well, hey, man, that's a half an hour. Boom, just like that. So
we got too much unfinished business to talk about.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm totally down with doing another episode. We can do a follow up. This has been an awesome interview, and you guys got lots of stuff going on. For the people that are listening, check out SeaSpan out in the West Coast. They got lots of cool gigs going on. Are you guys hiring yet, or are you guys still pretty slim?
In Vancouver Island, we're actually ramping down right now. We got a little bit of a break coming up, just with scheduling, and we actually had a bunch of cruise ships scheduled for the spring that have been canceled. But they're booming in Vancouver. Like if you're able to get over to North Van, they'll give you a weld test, but you want to get really good at running flux core wire.
That's what I actually told some students. I'm like, if I know shipbuilding, and it's usually a lot of flux core, and that's, you know what, being good on flux core is a good skill, because you can make flux core just beautiful.
T9 is my favorite, man. That is my Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything.
The only bad thing, it's the fumes, though, right? That's the only bad thing about them.
Yeah, no, it's T9 is the way to go. You just get to pound stuff out and move on to the next.
And you never have to worry about inclusions or undercut. It always lays in so nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen some guys lay down something that's like, how did you do that? Right? And then you just watch them and you're like, oh.
And the vertical up, just like running straight up. Like you don't even have to change anything. Like you just basically climb the wall. It's perfect.
Yeah, well, we have a ticket here in the West Coast. We call it the overhead underwater welding ticket.
Okay.
And where you're trying to weld the seam shut with the water coming in through the top. So
is it hard?
You're getting soaked and you got the rain pouring in and the water's boiling and you're having a shower and you're just trying to get the deck sealed up.
I had to do a weld once on a live diesel tank that was pouring diesel out, and I had to weld through the diesel. And I was terrified because I was like, thought I was going to explode myself and kill myself. But then I got taught that that's actually how you have to do it. You have to weld it with the fluid coming out, because if the fluid drops below the weld line, the vapors will ignite. So there's actually a guy filling it with more diesel as you're going to make sure.
What planet is this?
Yeah, and the puddle on the ground is burning because it's fuming at that point. That was a very scary day for me, but the procedure's there. It's written. You follow it, and it worked. It worked.
Right. I had the same thing. I was doing a job up on a ferry late at night. I had to go over to a remote Gulf island and repair a fuel tank, and I couldn't sleep for like 3 days leading up to it because it was like, you're going to weld on a fuel tank. You're like, never done this before, but it's the same thing, right? You just got some of the people that you're working with, and they know what they're doing, and nobody wants to put you in harm's way.
That's right. Trust the procedures. They're there for a reason.
It's a lot of fun, and then you can go back and you can say, hey man, I welded a fuel tank today, right? Like, you never believe what I did.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I'm going to keep in touch for the listeners. The shows always come up with the information. So I'm Ask Max 75 on Insta. If you need me, Mackenzie's up there. His information will come up. Look up SeaSpan. Any parting words you want to tell anybody listening right now?
Yeah, the best advice I can give you guys is it's a rat race out there. You always got to be one step up on the next guy, next gal. Just keep pounding. Just got to keep going and be part of the solution, and the world will open its doors up to you. You're a good tradesman. You're never going to get rich, but you'll always have a house over your head and a good meal on your plate.
Dude, I'm trying my hardest to be rich here. I'm not doing a great job, but I'm trying. I've been working like 4 jobs for like 30 years. I'll get there someday.
Right, but you probably have every toy you've ever wanted, right?
I just put the boat away for the winter.
Look at things in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, like the wage that our guys get, I mean, it's I think union trade rate right now is like $42 an hour or something like that.
Yeah,
like, that's a life-changing.
Yeah.
Like we make a big difference to people, and these guys are making good money, and welding can really change your life if you want it to.
Yeah, and it's a good community. There's lots of movement. My interview this morning was with a university student went back to school for engineering, and he's crushing it now with applied research with his welding skills. And I mean, there's so many avenues, right?
Well, and I have 2 people working for me. One of them's got a degree in kinesiology, and the other one's got an undergrad in law. And like, there's sharp people, and they come into the welding world, and they just make it look easy. They get into the books, and they're just, I think.
Well, my background's philosophy, if you could believe that.
Right, and look at how did I end up here?
Steady hands, man. Steady hands.
Steady hands. Yeah. Right on.
Cool. Well, I'll talk to you soon, buddy. I really appreciate the interview here. It was fantastic. And we'll keep in touch. And we'll make sure we stay connected, all right?
Yeah, well, and when this whole thing drops, man, come on out and I'll show you around, show you what we're up to. And
we were actually supposed to be out there this summer, and I was planning on stopping by. We had a trip to LA planned for the summer. COVID killed it, but we'll be out there. We head out to Vancouver every couple years for sure. And I'll make sure I can head out on the island and come visit you.
Yeah, bring John and Trent and the whole CWB gang. And
I talk to those guys all the time. We have lots of fun together, so we're a good crew to party with.
I've been warned, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, have you? Someone told you about me?
Yes.
I am a little famous for that. So,
All right. Well, I'll make sure I'm ready and well rested.
all right, man. Cool. Well, I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.